Yudal Amud Aleph towards the bottom. And we're about Kattan Shenolad Moed. Okay? And we had a machlokas last week about Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, right? Whether a person goes b'rshus or whether a person goes for rishus with where he's going from mizonos or he's going lashut, and we said everybody would agree that when a person goes for mizonos, that he comes back on top of yontif, he's allowed to take a haircut and get cleaned up. And when a person goes lashut, to simply go for vacation, he should have predicted it better, and there's no heter if he comes back on top of yontif. However, when it's harvacha, we said that's the machlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, and that looks like it goes both ways. That's really where the argument is between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. And then the Gemara says as follows: Amar Shmuel. Okay. This is 2, 4, 6 lines to the bottom. Kattan shenolad b'moed, mutar legaleach b'moed. Okay, if a baby is born on Chol Moed, he can be shaved on Chol Moed. Okay, why? She'en lecha BAYT asurim gadol mizeh. There's no right coming out of a prison larger than this. He was held there against his will, and therefore it's permissible. So we mentioned briefly this is a very fanciful kind of situation, but it's in line with what many times the Gemara tries to extend and expand the rules by example, to see how far the example goes to know what the rule is. Okay. Bottom line is, the Gemara is going to try to extrapolate from this something even more fanciful. So those, if the baby is born on Chol Moed, then he's permissible to have it. You can actually shave him or cut him, or give him a haircut. So Gemara says, "B'moed in may karalo." That's only, says the Gemara, is now being medayik on Shmuel's statement. If the baby is born on Chol Moed, but if the baby is born before Chol Moed, and there'd be no heter to give the baby a haircut on Chol Moed, because he had an opportunity before. This is all about these cases where you could have done it before, you didn't do it before, and you passed up the opportunity. We had cases where if you lost it, and so forth and so on. So the Gemara says as follows, and it's a very funny kind of question. Masiv Rav Pinchas. Rav Pinchas quotes from the Tosefta, says, Kol eila she'amru mutar legaleach b'moed, mutar legaleach b'mei evlo. If the people listed here are permissible to give them a haircut on Chol Moed, then a similar kind of thing would be if they became an Avel and didn't have an opportunity to have a haircut before. So a person got out of BAYT Asurim, and a person was an Avel when he came out of BAYT Asurim. A person gets out of BAYT Asurim, and someone has passed away already, he's already in the process of Avelis. How's that possible?
No. I don't see the connection, because you want to look nice for Yontif, but I mean, what's the big deal? You're expected to look your best at a funeral or when you're sitting in the
No, it means that the assumption was that an Avel should have been prepared before. I don't know. I guess the Brisa seems to make the comparison between the two and says that even though it looks like different reasons, the two are connected one to the other. So if it's mutar legalech moed, mutar legalech me'evlo, that's the statement in the statement of the Brisa simply says whoever's in one list is going to be in the other, even though the lists look like they're coming from different reasons. The Gemara says also, but we learn from that also legalech b'moed, also legalech b'me'evlo. However, a person who you can't give a haircut on Chol Moed, right? None of these people, if they were Avelim, could have a haircut on during the period of Avelis. That's the try to be medayek from this. What's the question? So an Avel, we just said about a Kattan, about Chol Moed before and afterwards. V'im, V'i amrit Kattan isbei plugda, and if you say that a Kattan, there's a difference between whether the Kattan is born before Chol Moed, before the regel, or after the regel, then what would come out? You would say that all of those who you can take a haircut before Chol Moed, all those who you can take a haircut on Chol Moed, you can take a haircut before. So all those you can take a haircut on Chol Moed, you can take a haircut when they're Avelim, and all those you can't take a haircut on Chol Moed, you can't take a haircut when they're Avelim. So the Sushal is, and I said this is the fanciful part of it, so Gemara is going to say, well, that must mean that if we have a baby who's born before Yantif, you said this kind of baby you can't give a haircut on Chol Moed, it must mean that you couldn't give a haircut during the period when this kid is an Avel. Now, if a Kattan is born before Yantif, there's no way that you could give the kid a haircut on Chol Moed. So it means in a comparable case, if this child became an Avel, so then this child which is born before the period of Avelis could not take a haircut during the period of Avelis. That's the logic. The question that's being asked is, there is no such thing. Child can take a haircut. There's no such thing of the child can take a haircut anytime, even when they're an Avel. There is no real Avelis for a child. And that's really the answer. The answer is the child does not have Avelis. The child is only doing like Nihuge Avelis. There's no mitzvah. The child's not bar mitzvah. But the question really is, this looks like it implies the child has to be sitting Shiva. That's the stretch of what this is. It's really a very, very far stretch type of question. So, if you say there's a difference, plukta in this case means a separation, a chiluk, not a machloket. Plukta sounds machlokas. If it says a chiluk between a Kattan that's born before Yantif and a Kattan born on Yantif, Kattan born that's on Yantif can take a haircut, and a Kattan that's born before Yantif can't take a haircut on Chol Moed. So you'd say the same way that a Kattan that's born before Yantif can't take a haircut on Chol Moed, a Kattan that's born before Yantif can't take a haircut during the period of Avelis. Because it seems to be that you're comparing very disparate things. Yeah. You take a haircut on Chol Moed, take a haircut on Avelis. Don't take a haircut on Chol Moed, don't take a haircut on Avelis.
So, why should that be? I mean, why should we be comparing?
I don't know. I don't know.
It doesn't seem to me. It doesn't seem to me that there are enough similarities between the two for us to say that the same rules should apply to the two.
I don't know. I don't know why they're making the comparison, but I'm saying based upon that comparison that seems to be illogical, we're never going to say it should apply all across the board. So if it's illogical there, it's going to be even just as illogical when you're applying to a Kattan.
And everyone knows when Yom Tov is coming up and when Chol Moed is coming up, but they don't know when they're going to be sitting Shiva.
Correct.
I mean, you can't say to these, you should have taken your haircut last week. What are you waiting now?
So the assumption is that people take haircuts regularly, and therefore, if they become nebuch novel at one point, there's a period of time they can go without taking a haircut. So, for example, we know that the best example is after Shloshim, person who's right. When can you take a haircut? Gorimbo. When people say you look like a slob, you look like a bum. How often? How far is that? Well, I guess it depends when your last haircut was before the Levaya. Depends what you're doing. But the assumption is that theoretically you could have taken a haircut. You wouldn't need a haircut for the period of Shiva, and you wouldn't need a haircut for the period of Shloshim, because you were up and around and you could do these kinds of things. On the other hand, a person couldn't because they were Beit Asurim, or they came from Medinat Hayam. And coming from Medinat Hayam means, by the way, they were on the ship. It's not like there are no barbers where they're visiting Medinat Hayam. It means they're traveling on a ship for a period of time. They're on a ship for a month. Beit Asurim, Menuda could not take a haircut for a period of time. They were Nidoi, and so forth and so on, or a Nazir. So all of these people were unkempt for long periods of time, and now Nebuch they became an Avel, and they become even more unkempt, so then that's permissible. But if they had an opportunity before, right, then they should have. That's the analogy. The analogy is really the fact that Avelus is an imposition, and if you couldn't prepare for if you were unkempt to begin with, maybe there's a heter to allow you to get somewhat semi-kempt, semi put in shape. But the question is really a very fanciful question. It says, if therefore it's also for you to take a haircut in Erev Yontif, If it's also to take a haircut on Chol Moed, it's also to take a haircut on Avelis. The answer is yes, that could be true. But the reason the Kattan is not included is because the Kattan is not applicable to Avelis. In fact, they asked it as a question. Right? So Nim says Avelis noheges b'Katan. If you're making this rule, which seems illogical, but it's said nonetheless, that if you are also to take a haircut on Chol Moed, it's also to take a haircut on Avelis, then you're saying that this Katan which is born before Yantav can't take a haircut on Chol Moed, can't take a haircut on Avelis, and you're saying that no Nim says Avelis noheges b'Katan. Okay, and the Gemara says Tanya, we know that does not take place, but we says very clearly, Mekaran lekatan mipnei agmas nefesh, when you do kriya. Right? The only reason you do kriya is not because there is a chiyuv of kriya, because that the agmas nefesh, in fact, it's not even the child's agmas nefesh, it's for the people surrounding. So Rashi and the others say, people surrounding, you're going to see the kid is doing kriya, they will be ripped apart in their sadness for the person who passed away. So it's really for the Rabbi. The kid himself may not have the das to understand what this means. So Makaran lekad menei agmas nefesh. So that's the question. So Ravashi, Sigmar Ravashi has the obvious response. Forget even Kattan. Ravashi's response is about the logic. In other words, it's if A, then B. But the logic doesn't really mean, if you study logic, if A is yes, then B is yes. So what does that mean? If A is no, B is no? No, it's obviously if B is no, then A is no. The obverse is, or the inverse is, you start from the end. Does that make sense? If today is Shabbos, then it is
Yesterday must be Friday.
Today's Friday, if tomorrow must be
Yesterday
Friday.
must be
I'm trying to think of a
The
good
other way around,
example.
the other way around.
If it's if the sun is out, then it must be daytime.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
But if the sun is not out,
It's not necessarily.
not necessarily nighttime.
Nighttime, right.
But if it's not day, then the sun is not out. So if the sun is out, then it's day.
Right.
The logical reverse is if it's not day, then the sun is not out. But what are we saying here? The logic that they're trying to present is if the sun is out, it is day. If the sun is not out, it's not day. That itself is not true. So that's what Rashi actually says. The logic is flawed. Rashi says a very short thing. Rashi, mikatani ha'asurim, dil miyeshmem asav yeshmem mutar. Doesn't mean that everyone that is prohibited to take a haircut on Chol Moed is going to be prohibited to take a haircut on Shiva. No. If not A, it may be yes B or maybe not B. So therefore, if you can't take a haircut on Chol Moed, means maybe you can't take a haircut during Shiva. Maybe you can take a haircut during Shiva.
Depends.
Right. The example that we're referring to here is the Kattan. The Kattan actually can take a haircut during Shiva. The laws of Shiva don't apply. Right? We train the Kattan. We train the Kattan. There's a mitzvah of kibbut of for the Kattan as well, saying Kattan. I'm saying the nehugim of sitting Shiva, and that all goes together with this, is not something that is the law that applies to the Kattan. Okay.
Why do we assume there's a connection?
Because there was a brisa that was quoted which made that connection. If anyone who can take a haircut on Chol Moed can take a haircut while they're in the Shiva. Anyone that can't take a haircut, then they're saying, and therefore anyone can't take a haircut in Chol Moed can't take a haircut during Shiva. So that's what we said. We said the connection seems illogical, but the Gemara seems to make the first connection. The Brisa makes the first connection.
But the Brisa is based on logic or based on...
The logic that we say, so I said before, the logic that we said is in all the cases, the people that are permissible to take a haircut on Chol Moed couldn't take a haircut before. The assumption was, even though you can't plan for Shiva, you cannot plan for Shiva in many cases, but people keep themselves in certain shape, or make themselves dressed in certain shape or haircut in certain shape. Person who was in a dungeon for long periods of time would come out completely disheveled. Person who was coming off a ship and had no access to any kind of barbers or any kind of accoutrements would come off disheveled, and so forth and so on. So these kind of there's a similarity to the fact that both these people were long periods of time unable to get ready, and therefore they could take a haircut on Chol Moed, and therefore maybe if they went to Shiva and Shloshim, it would be too difficult because they were so unkempt to begin with. Okay, but that's the piece that says yesh mem asav yesh mem mutar. Okay, now just to make sure that you really got it, the Gemara gives the same Gemara only as nitema, like a second version, which it takes the question, makes it the answer, takes the answer, make it the question. It's the same thing, only just flips around where the questions are. Ameimar v'teim Rav Shesha b'Rav Huna ad Ravidi masnahachi. They learned it like this. You'll see the same question, only going from mutter to us is going from us to mutter. Amar Shmuel. Kattan mutter l'galcha b'Moed. Lo shna nolad b'Moed. Lo shna nolad meikara. They have the version here according to Shmuel that a Kattan is permissible to take a haircut on Chol Hamoed, regardless of whether he was born before on Chol Hamoed, regardless of even if he was born before. Right? And that's different. That's the opposite of what we had before. And when we said that before, we asked the question on this. Now that our statement of Shmuel is reversed, so instead of being the question, we're going to have it as a supportive statement. Amra Pinchas Afanan Nami Tanina. We have a brisa that says this very same thing. Kol eila shama mutal galech b'moed mutal galech b'me'evlo. Person who can take a haircut on Chol Hamoed can take a haircut during the Avelis. Asurim legalech b'moed. Asurim legalech b'me'evlo. But the reverse is if you can't take a haircut on Chol Hamoed, you can't take a haircut during Avelis. And amrit Kattan asur. And if you say that a Kattan is going to be asur if he was born before Yontiv, he can't take a haircut on Chol Hamoed. Nimtzas Avelis noheges b'Kattan. So you see Avelis on the ways of Kattan. V'tanya mekan lekattan the agmas nefesh. And we know that's not true. So Ravashi says mikatani ha'asurim dilma yesh memasav yesh memutar. Okay, so it's really the same Gemara, only just tweaked a little bit different. It stops at a different end and really comes to the same place. Okay, so this is this piece about the Kattan kind of such a big deal, but it's really it's a very minor piece here of the Gemara.
But as far as adults are concerned, we're saying again, anybody who's allowed to do it during Chol Hamoed is or isn't allowed.
Is allowed anyone listed in this list here.
The people
all these people.
All those, yeah.
If these people Nebuch became an Avel.
Right, could also.
They could therefore take a haircut, correct.
But anybody who wasn't mentioned couldn't do it then or then.
Can't take a haircut either or then. That's correct.
Right.
Okay. Now we come to a very fundamental piece of Gemara. Okay, the next piece of Gemara we're going to learn, which really runs for about the next daf, gives us crucial rules about Avelis. This is where the transitionary starts going into talking about Avelis, and it's going to see if those rules apply to Nidui and to Mitzora. These are exceptions when Avelis does not apply. And from there, we're going to get into when Avelis does apply. So it's very straightforward, but you have to make the jump now and then between Avelis to the cases of Mitzora and Nidui. Okay, here's the halacha. Avel eino noheg aveluso beregel. Okay, an Avel does not carry out Avelis on Yontif. That's a rule. It's a rule, halacha l'maisa, that an Avel cannot be an Avel on Yontif. Now we say actually that Bifar Hesya, correct. So we actually say that the Avelis stops.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Or he moves to the next level of Avelis. The Shiva ends, he goes to Shloshim ends, and so forth. So Avel eno noeg Avelis beregel shenemar v'samachta b'chagecha. Okay. So the pasuk says v'samachta b'chagecha. That's a directive, and that is going to trump Avelis. So why will v'samachta b'chagecha trump Avelis? It's a mitzvah d'oraisa. It's a good point. So the Gemara assumes that maybe Avelis also looks to be like a d'oraisa, or maybe v'samachta b'chagecha may also be a d'rabanan. Maybe it's only d'oraisa when you had a Beis Hamikdash. Okay, but the Gemara says something else. There's a mitzvah of a yachid, mitzvah of a rabbim.
Why would the only was a Beis Hamikdash?
Because the Gemara says in Chagiga that says, that's v'samachta shalmei simcha with certain kabbanos. Excuse me.
That's according what's not. You can be some.
So the Gemara feels that v'samachta b'chagecha lefnei Hashem alekecha meant going to the Beis Hamikdash reading these kabbanos. Right, correct. So in other words, you can be happy. You can be a happy guy all the time. But the directive to be v'sameach, this is not Rav Nachman's, mitzvah to gedol liot b'simcha. That's a special mitzvah, okay? That's however he understood it. But the special mitzvah of Simchas Yontif, there are different opinions. One opinion clearly is the only way that you can do it is with korbanos, which means we can't do it today. Right? The other opinion you may have heard is maybe we can't do it if we have bus of yayin or bus, right? So, no, ain't simcha. That's what it means. That's what it means.
Say with bus of yayin.
No, according to some interpretations, the simcha yantiv is with meat.
Yeah.
In fact, the hardest halacha for a vegetarian to keep is going to be yantiv, not Shabbos so much. There's really not a mitzvah to eat. There's not a mitzvah, so to speak, if you want to use Sefer Simach B'Chigech as a mitzvah in the Torah. It's not really a mitzvah for eating meat on Shabbos. There are ways around it, but yantiv seems to be more of a.
What's Oneg Shabbos?
What's Oneg Shabbos? Oneg Shabbos is not Simcha. Oneg is like it's an enjoyment. So Simcha is higher. Simcha is more I don't know, happy.
How do you keep that mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos?
You keep Oneg Shabbos.
3 meals.
3 meals, yeah. But you have to. What if you don't have meat in the 3 meals? Okay.
If you're happy, what's it, like in other words,
So it's not subjective happiness. In other words,
it has to be so.
no,
no,
I mean, if you don't care what you eat, and you eat whatever, and you're happy with that, and you don't miss it, I'm happy with it.
But once again, if the Samachta B'Chagecha is based upon Shalmei Simcha, based upon Korbanos, you see that the way that the Torah defines happiness is bringing the carbon in the Beis HaMikdash. They didn't bring veggie burgers in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash was, and we forget this, was a very large processing packing house.
We haven't forgotten.
So, and
what does it have to do?
what does it have to do with Simcha? Because people, I don't know. You speak to guys. This is I'm gonna be very politically correct. Give guys a steak and potatoes.
What about those people that brought a meal offering? They didn't bring a.
That's correct.
That's in fact, that's the highest form.
Right.
The highest form. The mincha is the highest form.
For a rich person to bring an animal, for a poor person
But
to bring a bird.
Shalmei Simcha could only be animals. Right, I agree. So maybe they couldn't afford to do the mitzvah.
There's no way we believe that the Rabbi Shalom said we should only be happy on Yontif if there's a Beis HaMikdash, and for the other couple of thousand years we shouldn't be happy.
Bottom line is.
I'm not, hey.
So you don't have to eat in the car.
I guess you probably do. I guess you don't have to. The Shalmei Simcha you ate from. That's why. Only you couldn't be happy. You couldn't be happy if you're burning the whole carbon. Shalmei Simcha you were happy because you got to eat it. I don't know what to say. You know what? You got to go and Simcha Star, go to the Brotherhood Kiddush and go to where the women have their Kiddush. You'll see the difference, okay?
No, I understand. It's more simple than with meat.
But that's saying it's a guy's thing, all right? Here we go. Bottom line is, coming back to this, however we define Simcha, if you define it literally as Shalmei Simcha, that may mean that what the normal Simcha of happiness is not really a Torah level mitzvah, it's only a rabbinic mitzvah, which would put it up against Avelis, which is also really rabbinic, which would equal the playing field. Or maybe you could say that there are parts of Avelis that are Doraisa, or more importantly, maybe this mitzvah or the V'samachta B'Chagecha is only like an asmachta at best. The bottom line is the Gemara doesn't really take it on as Doraisa versus Rabban. It takes it on as Yochid versus Rabbim. V'samachta B'Chagecha, so Iavelis Dmei Karahu, if the person was an Avel first, and then comes Yontiv, Asi Asei the Rabbim, V'dache Asei the Yochid. So there's a mitzvah for everybody.
Yeah.
That has a significance, and it trumps the personal mitzvah saseh of Avelis. We'll have to see what actually the mitzvah is. What is the mitzvah of Avelis? We always think of it as negatives, right? But there are. We'll come to positive mitzvahs, and they'll trump the mitzvah of Yachid of Avelis. Via Avelis the Hashtahu, and if the guy only becomes novel now on Yontif. Right? So, it means first Yontif happens, and then the Avelis comes along. So then the Asay of the individual of Avelis is not going to trump the Asay of the Rabbim.
Why is that different than, I mean, it's worded differently.
All he's saying is, well, right, one is, if you started being an Ovel, it's going to be knocked off by the Yantiv. If Yantiv is here, it's not, the Avelos can't start. Exactly. By the way, that is more of a Doraisa. The first day of Avelos, if there is a mitzvah of Avelos Midat Torah, it's the first day. So that's clear. That is halachically correct. That's halachically significant in terms of everything that we know. And that's how the Gemara starts. Now, it would be enough to stop there. However, in the listing of people who somehow got wrapped together, we had all kinds of people of people Nidoy and Metzora, and all these other people. So the Gemara wants to entertain the question, and it makes a comparison between these kinds of people together. First of all, they're in the list, so to speak, of the Mishnah. Second of all, these are all people who are being excluded from the community. Same way an Avel doesn't go out, and he's kind of removed from the community, even though the community comes to pay a Shiva call. So to a person who is in a Nidoy is removed from the community, and so to a person who's a Metzora is also removed from the community. So the question is, if Yantiv is going to upend and remove Avelos, the sadness of Avelos is removed by the happiness of the Yantiv, of the Tzibor, right? So maybe, should the happiness of the Tzibor remove the sadness of the Metzora, the sadness of the person in need, and so forth? Now, it's hard for us to imagine. We normally think of Metzora as a physical ailment, or it has physical manifestations. So it's clear the physical manifestations didn't simply go away. Okay, but nonetheless, it's not a contagious illness. Right? It's viewed as a spiritual kind of malay that requires the person to stay away from the camp. The same way in Nidoy, a person in Cherem, there's nothing different between the person in Cherem and between everybody else physically. What's happened is he's been separated. Maybe he should be allowed back into the community during a 7-day hiatus. Absolutely. So these are the questions the Gemara asks. And the Gemara is going to give, we're going to see a couple of comparisons. We go through this Gemara between Avel and between Metzora and between Menuda. So the Gemara says, Menuda Mao Sheyinhag Niduya Boregel. Okay. Should a person who's in a Niduy, in a Cherem, be required to keep his Nidoy, the strictures of his Nidoy in the Regel, or should it be relaxed? So I'm Rabbi Yosef. So Rabbi Yosef says as follows. Toshma, come and listen. It says, Donin, Dine Nefashos, Vidine Makos, Vidine Mominus. Okay? So the Mishnah, the Tosefta, says that the Beis Din on Chalamoid was still able to judge Dine Nefashos, capital cases, Dine Makos, where the punishment could be lashes, and Dine Mominus, monetary cases. V'ilo Tzayis Dina. And if he doesn't listen, the guy is recalcitrant when the Din Torah comes across, Mishamtin Alei. We put the guy into a Cherem. So in other words, the Bryce is talking about what can be done on Chalamoid, one of which is the basic.
The question was Regel, not Chalamoid.
Chalamoid is part of the Regel. Chalamoid is part of the Regel.
So here they're considering.
Same way, an Avel can't be an Avel on a Regel, means Chalamoid as well.
Okay.
So the Basin didn't sit in session on Yantiv. The Basin sat in session on Chalamoid. They had to process.
So they didn't treat it just as a complete Regel, obviously. It's a sacred sat. Well, the Basin sat, so it was a Chalamoid, clearly.
Correct. Right?
Yeah.
So and the scribe had to write things, by the way, as well.
Sure.
So the bottom line is the Brisa, in enumerating this among the items that could be done on Chalamoid, this is Moed Kattan, mentions that they would they would do cases, sit on cases on Chalamoid, not on Yantif. They did not do it on Yantif. Right. But includes that if there was a case where he didn't listen to them, we put him in Chalamoid.
Yeah.
So we put him in Chalamoid. We put him in Cherem. So thank you.
But the actual list that they're quoting doesn't say anything about either Chalamoid or anything else. It says there are laws of this. The Bayt can this.
So the entire Bryce and the Tosefta makes it clear it's done on Chalamoid. It's listing items that were done on Chalamoid. Okay.
You mentioned writing. You're not allowed to write on it.
Correct, but you can write on Chalamoid where things have to be recorded. Scribes.
Court reporter.
So the court reporter had to keep certain records. Okay? Sounds like a chiddush? Not a chiddush. Had to be done. Okay?
All right.
I really wonder why they.
Why they sat on cases?
They can't.
Because I'll tell you why. Because the work. One of the more unusual things that happens, and you know it because of alternate resolution, is people go to court and they sit until they get a date in court.
Absolutely.
It's enough to turn anyone to alternative resolution.
I agree, but Kyle,
but the bottom line is that that's antithetical to what has happened then. You had a case, you went to the base, and you went to the Rav, they got together a Zeb or a Zeb or a Chad, you made a base and you dealt with the case. And you went on. You had to pay, you paid. You did not pay, you didn't pay. You got killed, you got killed. So whatever it was, you got mocked. In other words, it's like going to a supermarket. Things were taken care of regularly. It's like
absolutely.
So the fact that it was Chol Hamoed and things could be done, and these things had to be taken care of, they meant a Chol Hamoed. Okay. But the key of all of this is
they put him in the Cherem.
Put the guy in the Cherem. V'isal k'daitach eino nohek neduya b'regel. If you say that a guy who is in a nidui, he's suspended on the regel, mishumas v'asimei kara, mishumas v'asimei kara asi regel. Let's see. If you say that, if you say in a nohek regel, which means mishumas v'asimei kara asi regel dachile, that a person who is in a cherem. Right. And then from before, and then the regel comes and he's out of the cherem. Right. So mashamtin hashta mashamtin alei. Now you're going to put the guy into cherem. He knows if the guy's in a cherem, gets out of a cherem, the basin is going to put someone new in a cherem. No, it seems logical that if you're going to put someone in a cherem during Chol Hamoed, then cherem applies. You're going to say that someone's out of a cherem. Someone who's in a cherem is going to be suspended. Why would you put someone new into a cherem? Okay. So the Gemara, so Abaye gives a response. Amalei Abaye, v'dilma liyune bedine. Maybe it means when the Beis Din is sitting in session that they're actually going through what the case is. The ilo tema hachi. Let me just see something. Oh, so I realized I made a mistake. My mistake, okay? I'll back up. When the Brisa listed what the Beis Din does, the Brisa did not talk about cherem. I made an error. The Brisa listed the Beis Din sat in session and dealt with cases. The Gemara is medayik in the Brisa. If Beis Din sits in session, what would happen if someone didn't listen to the Beis Din? So the Brisa does not say that. The Gemara says, well, it must be that if a person didn't listen to the Beis Din, what's going to happen to him? Happens to anyone else. If you're putting a Beis Din into process, presumably there has to be the check and balance. If the guy doesn't listen, you put him in cherem. That's the way the Gemara is asking the question. So if that's the case, that you're going to put the guy in a cherem, how could you say a guy who's in a cherem comes out of a cherem? So the only response is going to be either that is an error, right, or the Gemara is going to try to attempt now to say the Gemara that they never really came to a conclusion of how the case would be until the very end of Yantif, almost like. So the Gemara says like this: Amar Abaye, Dedilma liyune bedine. Maybe really they're only when it says they're dealing with the case on Chol Hamoed, they're only looking at the case. They're debating the case itself. They're doing iyun on the case. Why?
They're not issuing the judgment.
They're not issuing the judgment, but they're allowed to meet to hear the case in their deliberations. Right. Which would mean if they never come to the final decision on Chol Hamoed, then you never have a case of going to cherem. Right. Which would mean that maybe a guy who's in cherem would get out of cherem.
Absolutely.
So the Gemara says, and the Gemara says, well, that sounds fanciful, but it will prove it to you that it was logical. The ilotema hachi, because if you say that's really true, when they come to a conclusion of the case, and when they come to a conclusion of the case is carried out, the justice is carried out. So what does that mean? Dine nefashos, the Kattan, when it says they dealt with Dine nefashos, hachinam midekatlin alei, how they kill the guy, hamimne misimchas yantiv. Now it doesn't mean that the victim is going to be killed and lose simchas yantiv. Doesn't mean the executed person. It means the judges will lose their simchas yantiv. What does that mean? You say it's very sad they killed a Jew. No. The answer is because we have a brisa that when a Sanhedrin issues the judgment and someone is killed, they're not allowed to eat the very same day. So in other words, so if you say that the judgments, the court sat in session, came to conclusions, which would mean that a person didn't listen to the conclusion, was put in Chayram, and in a capital case, the conclusion would be the person was killed with Arba Mises based in, it would mean the judges could not eat and couldn't eat that day. And there's a mitzvah to eat on every day Yom Tov, including Chol Moed. And many people, there are actually people who are careful to have meat, and I've seen people in Makbid have a little bit of wine on Chol Moed. Not a lot.
People
okay. Because the mitzvah, they say the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tov applies. So here they can't eat at all. They're going to kill the guy at 12 o'clock, they take him out and they stone him, that's it. So the rest of the day is in a tinus.
It ruins your whole
day. The Tanya, and that actually, so however often they killed someone, and whether it was 7 years, 70 years. Right, the Tanya, the guy who got killed lost his appetite. The Tanya, Rabbi Kiva Omer, Minayin l'Sanhedrin, Minayin l'Sanhedrin, Shehargus in Nefesh. How do you know a Sanhedrin that killed someone, She'ein Tanim Kolosiyom? They don't eat the whole day. Shin Talmud Lomer, it says Lo Tochlo Al Adam. She need on the blood. Okay, now Lo Tochlo Al Adam means you have to take the blood out of the meat. It's completely out of context. Right.
They didn't eat when they made a.
That's what he's saying.
When the guy was killed. When they made the din Torah is fine, but the guy's taken out to be killed. Because the halacha is once the decision was made, the guy was taken out to be killed.
Okay.
There was no death row.
So okay. So then they couldn't eat from then on.
The rest of the day. So that means, right? So therefore, you must say, you must say therefore for din and nefashos. At best, they were simply deliberating the case because they couldn't come with a judgment because then they'd be out of Simchas Yom Tov. Okay. So if that's the case, all of the items and listings there, whether it's capital cases or lashes or monetary cases, are about yuna b'dinei. Which means, stop for a moment. Let's just summarize so we take to the final answer. Which means, you know nothing about whether the person would put in the Chayram on Yantiv, on Chol Moed, for disobeying the command of the Sanhedrin.
You don't know if he was or he wasn't.
Because they never came to a conclusion.
Exactly.
So there never was anyone who was put in Chayram for disobeying the decision against him.
So who knows if
therefore, it's possible that a person's in Chayram was allowed to get out of the Chayram.
Absolutely.
We haven't proven it either way.
Absolutely.
Based upon the fact that the premise is that there never was a din Torah that came to a conclusion on Chol Moed.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. So
in civil law, you can put someone a court can put someone in contempt for misbehaving in court.
Yes.
So before judgment. But I take it that's not the case.
That's not Chayram. That's not Chayram. They can lock him up. They can do something to him. But being disrespectful to a basin doesn't put you in Chayram necessarily. In other words, when you break down the order of how the judgment is,
right. You won't listen to it.
It's treason. It's treason to the justice system, wherever it is. It's not treason. It's not political treason.
No.
But there was this was a primary reason why a person could be in Chayram. If you read all the stories in Pirkei Avos and in the other Mishnahs about Chayram, what put a person in Chayram? They disagreed with the Chachamim.
Exactly. The trouble is, many of these, it's hard to say that all of them were cases of nefashos or cases of mammon.
Whatever it was, if the basin said X, and you decide to say Y, you put in the Chayram. And if the basin, it's not only policy statements that this is okay on Shabbos, not okay on Shabbos. The basin said X, you're chayav, and you said I'm not chayav or I'm not paying, and you refused to pay. The ultimate power was you being excommunicated.
But most of the Chayrams I read about wasn't somebody refused a judgment to pay. It was disagreeing with larger questions.
Like our friend Spinoza.
Disagree with certain philosophic or religious.
These things exist in days. Thank you. These things exist in days of the Mishnah. It's not just Spinoza.
No, absolutely they did. That's what I know.
I'm just saying there weren't necessarily court cases in the strict sense, and
Okay, at any rate, bottom line is, so this is what the Gemara says. Now, so looks like we got out of the woods. The Gemara says, no, we got into a worse situation.
Sounded good so far.
So the Gemara says, Amalei, so I figured who was saying back to whom. This is, Abaye was the person before who just said this, and who raised the question of Yosef. So I guess Rabbi Yosef responds. He says, Im Kain nimsis manas dino. What you've done is you've delayed the judgment. You mean to say there never was a case where the basin sat down and they had a snap crack decision because it was so clear that Mr. X is chayav and Mr. Y is going to pay. Mr. Y is to pay Mr. X. And if if they came to that decision, you mean to say they twiddled their thumbs the whole day and said we'll come back after Yontif? Or other cases, a case of capital cases of lashes. You mean to say there was never a case they couldn't finish it up the same day? They had to kind of dilly-dally? That's called Inoi Hadin. The same way that you come to a decision and you carry it out right away. Even capital cases, the same way the basin did not delay coming to a decision. So you're trying to say you can't prove it because they were so busy they never came to a decision. They don't want to lose down their Yontif meal, their Chalamoid meal, and they'll lose that day. And by the way, it was only for that day.
What happened to our previous thing, which said in capital cases, if they carried it out, they couldn't eat. So we're assuming they didn't.
Correct.
Is that so?
We have to answer that.
Is that good logic? This is the answer.
So we're going. So in other words, what we're trying to say is you've tried to get out of that,
right?
But you put yourself into a worse problem of I did. The problem of saying a problem about they couldn't eat because they killed someone applies to capital cases. Now you're saying they never met in any cases,
yeah. So
right? Because remember the case of Cherem, which we're concerned about, is not going to be a capital case. Capital case, Mishchayv is killed. There's no way around. It's only going to be a case. It's going to be a case, a monetary case. So the Gemara says the Gemara's response in Kain Nimtzis Manas Adin. So therefore, the Gemara gives a final answer. Ella, the case is going to be as follows: that the prohibition to eat for the basin to eat is on the day itself when the person is killed. It's not a 24-hour period. It's a halachic day, sunset to sunset. In other words, a halachic
sunrise to sunset, maybe.
No, sunset to sunset.
That's 24 hours.
Correct, but I'm saying it's not a 12 to 12. It's not a 24 hours from the time you kill the guy. It's not a 24-hour timer from the moment he's killed. Let me give you an example.
Yeah.
If the person is killed at 9 o'clock in the morning, they based in candy from 9 o'clock until sunset. Great. They kill the person at 12 o'clock. They can't eat from 12 o'clock until sunset.
They kill
the same
2 minutes
day
before sunset, then they're fine.
That's the answer. Okay. The answer is that's precisely the point. In other words, that they would kill him the same day, but he was killed as it came to sunset. He get the whole day, right? They gave up.
And the proof is Yoshka, right? In there it says they killed him late in the day. No. They killed him late in the day, it says, because they couldn't leave his body. You know, you can't leave a body hanging overnight. As soon as the sun goes out, wham, wham, boom, that was it.
So the same thing, they basically have to take the body down right away.
That was it.
Okay, that's really unrelated. This is unrelated to anything. So I took the body down quickly.
Of course.
That
was basic.
So that's right. That was based off the correct. So the Gemara says as follows: Ella, if you look on the side, they have on the Masaras Shas it says Ella. Yeah, Ella kan tzarech lomar. And that makes sense because Ella is the actual answer. No, it's not a continuation of the question. Ella also mitzafra. The basin comes in the morning, and they go back for the iyun on the din. Then they go up and they eat and they drink. Kula yoma. Okay, so they come back as they're getting close to sunset. They conclude the din, and if he's chayav, and they kill him. So they
can't do that. No, you can't do that.
Why not?
Okay, because you can't find him guilty the same day. You have to sleep on it, right? So
they start the day before. This is the second day. It makes it even stronger. They start the day before. They come back the second day.
They don't come to the conclusion. Then they say, "Well, think about it overnight."
Well, that's what it means. When it means they slept on overnight, it means they slept and wake up in the morning. They came back and discussed it again.
Yeah, they came back and discussed it now.
So they discussed it again. So in other words, Inoi Hadin, in this case, this is the part that's maybe a little difficult to understand. Inoi Hadin means you can stretch out the judgment in the same day Inu Hadin is only if you go to the next day. So you got to find this period of time where they have enough time to eat all day,
but that
right?
was the problem.
And then they kill them, and they've eaten, and they don't have to fast again because it's the end of that day. And what does this mean, by the way? It means therefore, okay, this is the implication about the person in Nidui. It is possible that if they were able to carry out capital cases in all these cases on Chol Moed, it's possible there could be a person who refused to accept the judgment, and what would happen to him? He would go into a chayram. If the person could go into a chayram on Chol Moed because the cases are meeting, and we know how they got around capital cases by meeting right at sunset, making the din at sunset, and the other cases could be any time of the day, must mean therefore that a person that was in chayram before Yantif could not get out of chayram. That's the conclusion of this piece of Gemara, that a nidui was not suspended therefore for Yantif.
The only upsetting thing is to have the word ma'ayne bedine.
Yeah.
So they were just discussing it, or they were delaying it.
No, ma'ayne
really is discussing it, sort of.
Iyun,
yeah.
Right, la'ayin.
Yeah.
Ma'aneh, not
no, I agree.
They're two different roots, okay?
It just sounds to me still like they were delaying it all day long, so they.
But as I'm saying, the premise of the Gemara is that Inui Hadin is not judged in hours; it's judged in days. Okay. So otherwise, in fact, you have to think about it for a moment. It means the judges have to sit with their clocks and say if we take a coffee break, it's Inui Hadin. It means that day, you're judging the guy that day, you have to come to a decision by the end of that day. If you have a decision, you can't defer the decision to kill him the next day. Okay, so that's...
You know what they say about justice delayed.
Absolutely, 100%. Clearly,
the lawyers say justice delayed is justice denied.
Correct.
Right? So clearly they took this very seriously.
All right, so you got one more question. One more question about the Menuda. So in our Mishnah that we began this third parak, it listed people who are permissible to take a haircut on a Chol Moed. Ela Magalach Moed, Bam Dias Yom, Beis Hashiva, Yotzim Beit Asurim, V'Hamenuda, Sheitiru Lo Chachamim. Person's nidui who was let out. Correct. So the Gemara has a premise. It's a very difficult premise to understand, because the Gemara assumes when they means the nidui that the Chachamim permitted, maybe it means that every nidui in Yantif the Chachamim permitted.
The general.
In other words, the Hanidui that now the Chachamim automatically permitted. So that's the Gemara's response. The Gemara says, you want to know about a person in Nidu if he gets out of Nidu in Yontif? Let's go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, a Menuda is going to be that the Chachamim allowed. It means not just this guy, any Nidui. And what's the obvious response? It's not what it means. It means this guy who they found the way, or he recanted, he returned, he accepted the will of Chachamim, so they then undid the Nidui. They permitted his Nidui.
Otherwise, Shehid Hirano Chacham would be redundant.
Well,
you can apply to if every Nidui was going to be allowed by the Chachamim, then it would be sufficient to say Hamanuda, and it wouldn't be necessary to add.
So yes, except that if you look at the list in the Mishnah, all the other people before that person are people who had a transition. In other words, they came from Dinas Yom just then. They just got a Beit HaShivya, they got a Beit Asurim. So maybe, and a Menuda has an automatic transition then when it comes to Yantif. It's far-fetched. And that's the Gemara's immediate response. Amar Rabba. So I'm saying, Amar Rabbi, Tashma. U'menuda she'tiru lo chachamim. So it doesn't explain what the question is. The question is understood. It means that Chachamim, you see, the Chachamim allowed it. So you see the Chachamim allow Menuda to go back and enjoy Yantiv. Correct. Like law. Yeah, I agree. So Amar Rava, Mika Tani Shehitiru Chachamim doesn't mean the Chachamim Mamat there. When you say the Chachamim Mamat, it's like saying something was treif, and the Chachamim said that this animal is now kosher.
No, it's a Cherem is something he decided to put him in and they take him
out. It says Shehitiru Lo Chachamim, exactly what you said.
Yeah.
That the Chachamim allowed him There was a special case, the Azla Paisi Baldine. He went back to his Baldin. Why did they put him in Cherem? Because he didn't pay up what he was supposed to owe the Baldin. Right? And now he made up with the Baldin. We also the Kamed Rabbanan. The Chachamim saw that the case was resolved. He paid up what he was obligated, and therefore they permitted him. So no, basically what I just explained is where the premise of the Gemara. It's not that automatically every Nidui becomes Hitu Chachamim. It's not like it's like saying sometimes you hear about Gzeros and the Chachamim said the Gzera be mutar. Means this guy, he tirulo, him. Okay, now that we dealt with the Avel and we dealt with...
From a grammatical point of view, Shehitiruhu, what would that mean? What's the Shehitiruhu Chachamim or Shehitiru?
Shehitiruhu means that they permitted I guess him. Hitirulo means they permitted the nidui.
Right. Hitiruhu is him.
A menuda who was permitted, or could be applied to any menuda. Hitirulo means they permitted to him. They permitted to him because they removed his nidui.
Right.
Not that he's still in the nidui. Okay. This is almost like galeach, megaleach, and mitgaleach. Okay. So hitiruhu
is
no, they permitted to him.
It's the dative form of the pronoun.
Correct.
Whereas shehitiruhu
means
the
him. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's the direct object and indirect object of the verb.
Right.
You got it.
Right. Whether it's referring to him or referring to the nidui. It is subtle. The bottom line is we all understand when we read the Mishnah that we're talking about the case of Menuda who made up with his Baldin and therefore they permitted him. It's only that case.
To give his wife
anyone else, we're assuming is still in the Cherem.
Absolutely. People put in the Cherem for different reasons.
All right. So what we decided so far is an Avel. Yantif overrides.
Yes.
A Menuda, Yantif does not override.
So he
still stays in his Nidui.
Sounds like it.
Okay. Got one more guy. Now, Mitzora. This is the third of the trilogy. They're all very different, obviously.
Yes.
But Mitzora, Mao Shianhi Tzarato Beregel. Does he keep his Tzaras on the Regel? Or if we're letting the oval back up into it, maybe he gets a reprieve. Okay? Rabbi. So this is all Abai. What's going to buy again? Toshma. This is quoting from our Mishnah. Viha Nazir, Viha Metzora, Ishbiha Ola Mitzumasol Taro. So our Mishnah said, in enumerating the people. Remember, the first were people who came last minute. Then there are people who about kibbutz. And then we listed a certain all different types of people who were just different. Where's the mitzvah? Oh, I'm sorry. In the first list, after we had the menuda, we have nishal chachamim vutar, va'nazir v'hamatzora ho'olam mitumas l'taro. A nazir whose nazirus obviously seems to have ended then, and a metzora who as well. He changes Miktame to Tar at that point at Yantav Chalamoid. So the Gemara makes the obvious connection. Habi made to Masal Naig. So now the only Mitzora who is going to be permissible to take a haircut on Yantav Chalamoid is the one who goes from being Tame to Tar. Which means if then nothing happened, he's still a Mitzora. He's out. Nothing changed. That's the Gemara's response.
The Nazir is like the Nazir.
The Nazir also.
The Metzora, you could argue, well, we'll make an exception for him. He's still a Metzora, couldn't you? I mean, in theory, let's say.
Why?
The Nazir is a Nazir, no?
But it means the Nazir.
How can he take a haircut?
The Nazir is Naziros.
We're talking about a haircut now?
Yeah, but the Nazir is Naziros ended.
Oh, so it's ended. So he's not a Nazir anymore.
The people listed here are the Nazir and the Metzora who go from Tumah to Hara. Means both these cases are people where it ended up.
Okay.
Well, he's required. Both of them are required to take a haircut. Correct.
Right.
So, but it means both of them, their period of time ended at that point.
Be a question about
but the Nazir, he took it upon himself He knew 30 days, starting as is. He could calculate that my 30
Right.
days is
So,
going
so as Mr. Richter pointed out, the Nazir is different because the Nazir has to take a haircut. Part of his process of end of Nazirus. So he's required to be Mitgalea.
Even the Mitzvah also.
He should start his Naziris a week early.
Okay, we didn't.
Didn't the Mitzvah?
People made Nazirus any day of the week.
Just like come on, Nazir.
And by the way, it didn't have to be 30 days. It can be a Nazir for 36 days, for 49 days.
Minimum 30 days.
Right, minimum. People.
14.
30 days is undefined. Yeah.
If you don't define it, says.
How many times do you hear about people making an appointment at a doctor every half a year later and they suddenly find out it's Yontif or Erev Yontif or Chalam, some really awkward time on the Jewish calendar. And you say, how come you didn't know? You didn't know. They look, they gave you an appointment 6 months. What do I know when Pesach and Shavuot is going to be?
No, but doesn't the Mitzvah have to also shave? I seem to remember
Correct.
it's all together.
Correct, but it's all.
together, not just
But
the
no,
hair,
so
all
it looks like it's clear because Mitzvah has the Giluach.
Right.
So both these cases are examples where he's required to shave.
Right.
And therefore, if it comes out in the middle of Yom Tov, he shaves. But what seems to be clear is if it didn't end before Yom Tov,
then he wouldn't be able to.
he's not. There's no heter whatsoever.
Clearly the Nazir.
Correct.
For sure.
Okay, so the Gemara, that looks good, and the Gemara is going to take that apart. So Mitzvah Moshe Yeres regular Rabbi Toshma Vanazim Mitzvah V'Halam Mitzvah Latara Hobi made to us. So Noig. So the Gemara says, wait. Maybe it's not true. Maybe your diuk is not true. Lomi boy ka'amar. In other words, maybe Lomi boy be made to maso the lo noig. Maybe really when a Nazir is tamei. I'm sorry, a Mitzvah is tamei.
Right.
When a Mitzvah is tamei, maybe he actually is not going to be considered a Mitzvah. We're going to allow him on Yantif, but Lataraso. But when he becomes Tahar, maybe there's a special reason not to allow him to become Tahar when he becomes Tahar to take a haircut. In other words, I could have thought the logic's the other way around. What are we trying to say? When nothing happened, he's surely out. The only time he can take a haircut is when he's finished.
Right.
Maybe the logic's the other way around. When he's Tamei, he can take a haircut on Chalamoed. When he becomes Tahar,
We'll have to wait a couple more days.
why do we have to wait? Okay, Shema Yisha Karbanosal, because we're afraid that maybe he will delay bringing his karban, because when he takes the giluach and he goes from being
Once he's tahor, he's supposed to bring his go to the Beis Hamikdash.
correct, bring a karban.
Yeah.
So maybe he will wait to bring his karban when it's back to being yantif, and you can't bring a karban yachid on yantif. So we're going to say that I could have thought really that any mitzorah, tamei and tahar should be okay, but I could have thought that the mitzorah that becomes tahar, I'm going to make a special rule, he can't take a haircut, because I'm afraid if I say take a haircut now, it's now Chalamoid. Until I bring the carbon, I'm going to wait a day or two, it's going to be Yantif. I'm going to bring my personal carbon on Yantif, and that's wrong. So I'll say to this guy, you wait to do the whole process till after Yantif, and you won't transgress Yantif.
Yeah.
But maybe a regular Mitzorah who is Tamei, he's okay. The Gzeira doesn't apply. That's the logic going on there.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So so that's that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, now. So commercial. So I could have thought. So lomi by made to myself lo. Maybe when he's tamei, he surely is okay. Take a haircut. But I could have thought that taraso nigzer shemu yisha karbanosal. When he becomes tar, maybe I say don't let him become tahar. Don't let him take a haircut because maybe he'll delay his carbon for a day, and the next day is yantif because chalamoy is right in the middle, and then he'll bring a personal carbon on yantif, which he can't. Kamashman comes along. Our mission is saying no, that the guy who becomes tahar can bring his carbon. But maybe the guy is still tummy can also his mitzvah is off, and he can come to the base. He can come his mitzvah
to the Beis Hamikdash.
or he can do anything.
Yeah.
His mitzvah he can come back into Klal Yisrael.
He'll bring his own. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. One more piece. Amar Rava. Toshma. V'hatzarua So the pasuk says when it talks about vatzarua, so the mitzvah it says vatzarua v'sheish b'nei gasra l'rabos kohen gadol. That this includes the word hatzarua, says this comes to teach me that even a kohen gadol, tzaras can apply to him. So a kohen gadol has tzaras is a mitzvah. Now you say, so what? So the Gemara says because for a kohen gadol, every day is like Yantiv. Okay, there are certain strictures that apply to a Kohen Gadol every day that make it look like for him is a Yantiv. For example, a Kohen Gadol cannot eat when he is Kohen Gadol can bring a carbon when he's an Onain, and
that doesn't sound like a bad guy. Sounds like the opposite.
Right. So Kohen Gadol makriv onain ve'eno ochel, and he can eat as no, he can bring a carbon, but he can't eat. So Shema Mina, no. So you see, if the Kohen Gadol can become a Mesorah, and many of the halachas like a Kohen Gadol look like they're applicable to us on a Yantiv, so it looks like Noeg Tzoraso Beregel. It looks like, therefore, that a Kohen Gadol who can become a Mitzorah, even though the laws of Karban look like they're laws of Yantiv to a regular person, means like every day for him is like a Yantiv, must be that a Mitzorah can be a Mitzorah on Yantiv for a regular person. That becomes the Tzushtel of Rava.
He can still be a Mitzorah, in other words. He's not out of
right, in other words, the fact that a Kohen Gadol can become a Mitzorah, and the fact that certain halachas look like they're Yantiv halachas for a Kohen Gadol, means that for a regular person on a real Yantiv, he's still going to be a Mitzorah. Because if the Kohen Gadol can be a Mitzorah, every day is like a Yantiv for him.
Gotcha.
So therefore, Shema Mina, so we see from this the Mitzorah can't. The Mitzorah is going to be considered a Mitzorah even on Yantiv.
Right.
Okay, so what do we have so far to wrap this up here? Avel is deferred or pushed off. For Yantiv, when it came to a Nidoy, it's still in effect.
Right.
When it came to a Tzuras, it's still in effect on Yantiv. On Yantiv and Chalamoy.
Nobody gets a break.
Nobody gets a break, correct. And now we're going to deal with all the others, one after the other, about different isurim of an Avel. Why an Avel can't take a haircut, why an Avel can't do this, why an Avel has to turn over the bed, we don't turn over the bed. All the halachas of Avelis go one after the other here, and they will try to apply them as well to Mitzorah in many cases, and to a person in need, where they apply them as well. So it's actually the next week or two is very fundamental halachas of source material of where we see prohibitions of Avelis come from. Today we saw the exception that doesn't apply to Yantiv and Chalamoid. Now we get into the actual listing itself.
Perfect.
Okay, good.